In today's harsh and judgmental society, it's hard to feel comfortable in your own skin, but it takes a particularly twisted individual to even think of trying on somebody else's. Edward Theodore Gein was born on the 27th of August 1906. The child of an aggressive alcoholic and an obsessively devout Christian, he was raised in Plainfield, Wisconsin, and would grow up to be one of the most notorious killers of all time. While Ed was only convicted of 2 murders in total, he had a penchant for grave robbing, and the crimes he committed with the bodies he exhumed was so deranged they would fuel nightmares for generations to come, inspiring horror literature and movies alike. Living on a 155-acre farm with his parents and brother Henry, Ed's life seemed a simple one, but his repressive upbringing would mould him into a sinister psychopath. Disturbingly devoted to his mother, Augusta, he was always by her side, and with only enough room for one lady in his life, he never dated. As this bond strengthened, Ed's descent into madness began, and the relationship would go on to influence Robert Bloch's thriller novel, Psycho, later adapted for the big screen by Alfred Hitchcock. Starring Anthony Perkins and Janet Leigh, the story of Psycho centres around Marion Crane, who ends up on the run after stealing money from her employer and stops for the night at the secluded Bates Motel. The motel's owner is Norman Bates, a strange but seemingly nice man who lives with his mentally ill mother. At least, that's what he would have people think. As it turns out, Norman killed his mother some years ago. Filled with guilt, he dug up her body and placed it in a chair, caring for her and talking to her as though she was still alive. His obsession with her death led him to develop a split personality. By night, he would assume the role of his mother, wearing her clothes and a wig as he murdered any female motel guest that Norman felt attracted to. Little do many people know, but the Psycho novel was actually almost completed by the time that Gein's crimes were revealed to the world. When the news reached Robert Bloch, he changed the book slightly to reference their horror, but even he was surprised at just how closely the nightmare he'd created resembled the terrifying reality that had happened in Plainfield, just 35 miles from his home. But what, exactly, did that reality entail? With his father dying of heart failure in 1940 and his brother suffocating during a blaze in 1944, Ed Gein and his mother were finally alone together when she suffered a paralysing stroke. He cared for her day and night until she eventually died just 1 year later. After her passing, Ed was consumed with grief. Becoming increasingly unstable, he kept her bedroom in pristine condition while the rest of the family home went to ruin. 12 years later, in 1957, a local hardware store owner by the name of Bernice Warden was reported missing. After some investigation, police were horrified to discover the body of Mrs. Warden in a dimly lit shed on the Gein farm, hanging upside down and decapitated. Inside his home, the real extent of his crimes were revealed when a macabre collection of artifacts was uncovered. This included masks made from human faces, bowls made from human skulls, a belt made from human nipples, and much, much more. One of the faces found was taken from Mary Hogan, a local tavern owner who'd gone missing in 1954, while the rest were stripped from bodies Gein had exhumed from nearby graveyards. If this horrific scene sounds like something from the set of Tobe Hooper's Texas Chainsaw Massacre, that's because Ed Gein was a direct influence. Directed and co-written by Hooper, Texas Chainsaw was filmed on a budget of only $300,000. Its content was so controversial that it was outright banned in several countries, but it was still immensely successful, returning over $30 million at the box office. While the story of a group of friends being captured by cannibals in the dirty South is nothing new by today's standards, this movie was the first to bring such terror to the big screen. With the merciless, hulking figure of Leatherface haunting dreams for decades, it was this character in particular who drew most influence from Ed Gein, dismembering bodies and wearing the skin of his victims as Gein so often did behind closed doors. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Leatherface made such an impression on moviegoers that he's widely accepted as one of the horror genre's most iconic characters. But with a killer like Ed Gein inspiring his creation, it's little wonder that he continues to terrify audiences to this day. After Gein was apprehended by police, he would go on to tell them that the bodies he dug up were all middle-aged women who reminded him of his mother. His masterpiece, however, was a full woman suit, carefully stitched together from various parts of various women. With this, he could be closer to his mother than ever by literally crawling into her skin. Anyone who has seen the incredible cinematic adaptation of Silence of the Lambs will most likely recognise this behaviour. Based on the novel by Thomas Harris, Silence of the Lambs follows FBI trainee Clarice Starling as she attempts to track down a serial killer who has been kidnapping, killing and skinning women, a serial killer known only as Buffalo Bill. With the help of the highly intelligent Hannibal Lecter, Clarice discovers that Buffalo Bill is in fact a transgender man named James Gum, who applied for a sex change operation but was denied. Driven to insanity and desperate to become the woman he so dearly wants to be, he resorts to killing unsuspecting females and uses their skin to meticulously stitch together a woman suit of his own, just like Ed Gein. While Gein is undoubtedly a major inspiration for Buffalo Bill, James Gum's MO also includes a combination of traits from other famous killers, including Ted Bundy, Gary Heidnik and Edmund Kemper, but we'll save those for another day. Although he confessed to the murders in full, Ed Gein wouldn't face a single day in prison. Deemed not guilty by reason of insanity, he spent the rest of his days in a mental hospital, dying of respiratory failure in 1984 at the age of 77. So uniquely evil in nature, there are many more movies based on the crimes of Ed Gein, and there are no doubt many more to come. While he may be long gone, his chilling story has left a lasting impression, cementing him forever as one of history's cult killers. If you liked this video and want to learn more about the murderers behind your favourite movies, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the Cult Fiction channel. Until next time, just remember that most cult fiction is a whole lot closer to fact than you might like to think.